Good evening, everybody. This is Drew Valens with Satellite Prep, and I'm going to take you through how to interpret your SAT score report, which most people are thinking about right now since the November SAT just came out, and people are just getting their scores back. So basically, when you click on the SAT of this particular period, which is November, you'll probably see an option to purchase what's called the score report. I definitely advise you to do that. It's a little yellow bubble that'll be located towards the top of the screen. And when you purchase that, it's somewhere between, I think, $14 to $18. And what that does is it will give you a little more detail in your score report. Some months it'll give you more detail than others. In this particular month, in this particular test, it will not allow you to see the actual questions that you had on the test, but it will allow you to see which ones you missed and which ones you didn't, and what they test you on for each question. So I won't take a long time to go through this. I just want to give you a general orientation so you're not overwhelmed. When you come to a screen like this, it'll give you your total score right here and your total percentile compared to other people in the nation who took this particular test. It's broken down into two sections. You've got your reading and writing, which is called the verbal side, right? And this particular student got a 500. And then your math score, which this particular student also got a 500, perfect, which combines to a 1,000. And it gives you your percentile as well. Then what you'll probably be curious about is like more detail, more information, right? So if we click on score details here, it'll come to a screen like this, and you'll see test scores, cross test scores, and sub scores. I'm just going to say that sub scores give you a real detailed breakdown of the types of questions that were on each section. And this could seem kind of overwhelming. What you want to do generally is just look for the high and the low numbers. So notice we have an 11 as a high and a 6 as a low. And this gives us a little information. It means, I wonder why that's low. By the way, these are on a scale of 15. So if you have a lower score, this particular student, standard English conventions, you can click on the question mark and it'll tell you what those types of questions were. So I know that these questions have to do with grammar rules and the nuts and bolts of grammar and syntax. So that would be something that this student definitely needs to work on. The first 4 are from the verbal section. They have to do with reading and writing. And the bottom 3 have to do with math, heart of algebra, problem solving and data, and then the more advanced math. Right? So this student has kind of a well-balanced math score, 878, right? So nothing's particularly stands out, although it would be nice to see those scores higher in general. So that's sub-scores, right? Cross-test scores, analysis in science versus analysis in history. I generally don't put too much stock in those. That's just basically the test saying that there are certain verbal questions and math questions that are sciencey, and some actually are testing not your knowledge of history and social studies, but just your aptitude to sort of absorb stuff about history and social sciences, social studies. Unless one of these scores is completely way different than the other, which doesn't usually happen, I would just don't worry about these scores too much. Test scores is where we want to look. So test scores, you've got your reading, your writing and language, and your math. These scores right here, 24, 26, and 25, are strictly scaled scores. Don't worry too much about those. Don't get too confused about that, right? Pay attention to mostly these numbers on the right side here. You want to know the hard data, right? How many you got correct, how many you got incorrect, right? For both reading, writing, and math. And by the way, the writing and language is section 2, which is the grammar stuff, right? So you want to see how many you got right and how many you got wrong. It will not break up the math section into 2 particular sections in this particular layout right here, right? So you just want to look, and that'll give you an overview of how you did. Cool. So that's everything about score details, right? Here's the best part. It's the third block here. You're going to click on test questions, okay? Test questions. So what's great about this is you can look at the 4 different sections, and you will only be able to see this level of detail if you purchase the SAS thing, the little yellow bubble that I told you about earlier. So what's great about this is it tells you, how many you got right, how many you got wrong. but it also tells you the levels of difficulty. So you could see how you're missing the questions. And it also tells you, along the way, you can see, for example, this student started off by missing a bunch, then got a bunch right, and then missed a bunch, and then got a few more right. And what's interesting about this is, since this is the reading section, you know right away that something in the first passage, the first reading passage, caused this student a challenge. Who knows what it was? Maybe they were nervous when they first started, or maybe there was a certain topic in the passage that was unfamiliar to them and therefore challenging. So basically, we are not allowed to see the actual questions at this particular month, which is a SAS score report. Other months, I think it's March, maybe October, and there's one other, you can purchase what's called a QAS, which will allow you to actually see the questions that you took. But they only allow that like 2 or 3 times of the year. Pay attention to difficulty level. 1 box is easy, 2 boxes medium, 3 boxes difficult, right? Pay attention to these types of things, like what's the topic that you kind of missed. And that's what you can do there. You can also filter. You could say, I just want to see how many of the correct answers were easy, right? So that many. Or you could just say, how many of all of them, how many easy questions were there? And how many did I miss? You say, they missed 3, 4, 5 easy questions, right? How many medium questions did I miss? Click on medium and you see I missed a lot of medium questions, right? Cool. So you can do that for each section, right? So I'm looking at it right now for, what am I looking at? Reading, right? But if we go to writing and language, same thing. Shows you those questions. Math without the calculator, same thing. And math with calculator, same thing. Don't forget about these filters to help you understand, you could break it down according to that. The last box is skills insight. Okay, skills insight. I don't usually look at this too much as a tutor, but maybe I should. It just gives you real detailed breakdowns of the kinds of skills that they feel you are good at and that you need improvement on, right? I find it to be very complicated, overly complicated and stuff like that. So I wouldn't worry too much about that skills insight. And that's basically an overview of how you do of how you look at your SAT scores, and you can compare them to previous scores, etc. And on a final note, I hope that you enjoyed this video and that you enjoyed my sunglasses. Thank you very much.